All right, so very fortunate to be here with Jeff and Joe. Very fortunate to have known these gentlemen for over 30 years, thanks to Jeff's guitar program at JGC and the Wolfpack Guitar Ensemble. We were just kind of catching up a little bit. So let's just do that. Let's just kind of catch up a little bit. And then I did prepare a couple of questions about the new album. So, Joe, you were talking a little bit about how things have changed since COVID, and you're doing what you like to be doing. So I did have a chance to catch up a little bit with Jeff. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're doing now and how it is, what you've been looking for?
Well, in brief, everything which used to happen in person is now happening online. There's very little happening in person, especially with the harmonica being my area of expertise, with excessive inhaling and excessive exhaling, and actually grabbing the instrument with your hands and bringing it to your mouth. It is nothing but red flags all over the place. So I think a few too many people are too relaxed about the situation regarding wearing masks and getting vaccines, and I try not to be in a position where I'm going to be judging people, but I know that it's a very dangerous situation for me to be doing what it is that I want to do. So taking it all online just seems like the smart way of going about things. So I've enjoyed it very much, although I was quite resistant to it.
As with anything new, we're at a certain age, change can be difficult.
Yeah, but I had made up my mind that that was not a path that I wanted to go down. I was thought of myself as being an in-person teacher and performer, and well, that just didn't, it wasn't an option. It wasn't a wise option at all anymore. And so I had a bad attitude for a couple weeks and then just decided to run with it and realize that actually I prefer this situation.
Which is pretty wild.
Yeah, it is. I admit to being very humbled by it, but it's the kind of that philosophy that when all you got is lemons, you make lemonade.
That's excellent.
But Eric navigated it very well, though. That's his partner. He really jumped in, learned the tech, kept, bouncing ideas off other people, going, how can I make this better? How can I make it so there's no latency? How can I make it so it's just seamless? And he got the correct gear that he needed. Got the right microphones, got the right environment, kind of things. And so he's been studying the medium, and he's doing it as good as anybody, and so
That's high praise, Jeff.
Yeah,
Definitely is.
yeah, it's a great partner. Eric's doing just a splendid job on navigating this whole medium and making, and then it's got a cool name, 34th Street Lounge, and so you feel like you're going to a concert, and I think he's done a splendid job there.
There's certainly lots of people that have got no interest in turning on their computer and watching an online concert. I understand that, but our interest group is global, so that's the plus side to it.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great segue, Joe. If you don't mind, I'll segue back to Jeff to talk about the fact that I am your guest here today, and this incredible. I'm really enjoying the look of this lab. If you don't mind, just maybe saying a couple words about the program and what you've got going on here today at University of St. Francis.
Yeah, sure. I can talk about a little bit about the history of it. Basically, when Joe and I kind of got into this, originally into this project, in the 90s, we were always pursuing trying to have a great studio and where we could record, top-notch sonic levels, so we could really work with that. And so You know, I had the studio on Oakland, now I have the studio. Joe helped me build both of those studios at the new place on Cowles. And so that, you know, that pursuit was always there, and you know, really trying to finish, you know, this project. Well, in the meantime, you know, we had the other kind of recession in 2008, you know, where
The Great Recession.
whoa, yeah, it was a little bit nerve wracking for, you know, for us in trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to pay for these new, you know, this new place and this new world? Well, then what happened was the dean of the University of USF, I had been here already for 12, 13 years, and as an adjunct. And then he came to my studio and he was really impressed. This is right after we kind of got it set up and finished. And he goes, "Why isn't the school starting doing anything like this?" And I go, "I don't know." So then he said, "Write coursework up, you know, we'll get it into the music department." So we did work. 2009, got it through. 2010, you know, then I had to go look for investors and things. And then luckily, my friend Jason Patero, who was the principal at Chicago Academy for the Arts, had a friend who was a forensic pathologist, and he had passed away, and so his wife, he was into recording, an avid recording. He just loved recording. He had a house filled with gear, and then he had another house filled in Oak Brook, you know, with another,
Okay.
yeah, he had a Neve board and a whole bit. Well, anyway, when he passed away, his wife wanted to help us, and so she gave us some of the gear, and his name was Dr. Bryan Mitchell, by the way, and so so he outfitted us with this incredible board, the Audient board. It was, you know, it's a 48 channel board with all the wiring and all the soundproofing. You know, that was probably $85,000-$90,000 donation. So jump started the program.
Well, what a great way to.
Oh, yeah. And so and then I kind of convinced my peers here at the school that I could do things, you know, and they went, "Whoa, okay, yeah, we'll go." And so then they hired me full-time as an administrator and a teacher, you know, and so I was building out the program. And then the next year I got a hold of Albie and I said, "Hey, do you want to be a part of this?" You know, and so he helped me, you know, he took some of my other coursework that I was doing and we kind of expanded it. It was growing though, because there was a lot of interest in recording. And we called it the Digital Audio Recording Arts, because because they even gave us a ton of tape stuff. They gave us, you know, tape machines, a big 24-track recording. We had 60, you know, 2-inch tapes. Back in the day, that stuff was really expensive, but we didn't want to even bother with that because we knew.
So you made a decision early on,
Yeah.
we're going digital, even though we have this wealth of analog tape.
Yeah, exactly, and so we didn't want to go there, you know, and so, because we wanted to set ourselves apart with that, so that's why we called it the Digital Audio Recording Arts Program. And so then people started getting drawn to it, you know, we were one of the, you know, not very many places. Our only real competition in this area was Columbia, you know, and so, and we always focused on, you know, developing your musicianship, being great tech audio engineers, but also the entrepreneur part, you know, being able to make livings with the multiple streams of income. That's kind of what we were, you know, we were basically teaching the people. That was the way we kind of approached our, because this was the first time I had a full-time job in the music, and again, this was when I was, holy cow, I think it was 53 or something, 54 or something like that when I got this. And I always had multiple streams. Albie, same way. And so then it started growing, and they said, "You know what, turn this thing into its own major." You know, and so we worked with the business department too to add some of the entrepreneur coursework and marketing coursework into it. And that was, you know, parents were settled with having their kids be a part of something like that, not just music, you know, something that was more, you know, three-pronged, you know, learning different skill sets. And so in 2015, we became our own major, you know, and so we kind of stepped aside from the music department and had our own thing. And, you know, it's been growing ever since, and it grew. We had up to 35 majors last year, you know, but then with the COVID deal, you know, we kind of got spanked because normally we go out and do concerts with our Dara OS ensemble, which is electronic ensemble. We have those like push controllers over there where people, you know, play those, and then they write songs, which those things can control the lights. You know, there's 7 computers synced up with each other, you know, doing, you know, lighting, sound, and, you know, their particular performances, you know, and so, but that we haven't been able to do that for 2 years. So we're a little down now, you know, but we're trying to, you know, reboot it.
That's amazing. So, you know, just having graduated from this place back in 1989 and remembering what a good business program they had.
Oh, they have a great business.
I'm sure none of those people are around like Michael LaRocco and them, but even back in the day, they were very well respected. And I remember in our stats class, we weren't just sitting there entering stuff into the computer. We were doing research, I think it was for DuPont's. So LaRocco had partnered and said, okay, you know, give us all the data, we'll have the students input it, and then crank out some analysis for free, and it's a win-win. You guys get some statistical analysis on your product line, and the people get some practical experience. So that's really neat to see that that kind of thing is
We saw it right from
continuing.
the beginning, we had to go there, you know, that we needed to connect in with those kind of, and we created some coursework for them too, you know,
That
like
is
survey
excellent.
music industry, music, music revenues as one, and then the other one is like independent record label management, things like that. And then plus we dovetailed with their other coursework in entrepreneur and marketing and stuff. Yeah, they have a great, we'd like to actually expand it more if we could.
That's amazing, great. Well, another perfect segue. So, you know, the reason that brought me down here, or one of the reasons, besides wanting to see you guys, was the perfect excuse for me, but not for you guys, passion project being the new album. So if you guys don't mind, we'll talk a little bit about that.
The friendship element?
Yeah, exactly. So how did that get started?
You
It's been years in the making, right?
want to talk for a while?
You go, man.
Okay.
You're better qualified.
Okay. Well, what happened was I've been writing music since I've been in college, you know, and creating songs and as after the Wolfpack, you know, I decided to create my own. I wanted to start recording a studio, so I started my own recording studio, and I worked at DJ's Music, selling gear and buying equipment at cost, so I could start my studio. And so as we were starting to compile songs, we started recording, you know, and then so we'd listen and we'd go, you know what, we did good takes on these, but the level's still something wrong here. It's not like pro level. So
What year is this?
this is around 94, 95. See, so it's pretty late there, you know. So wouldn't you say that was correct? Yeah, I think so. So we were like in this big hunt for why is there a veil over it in a sense? You know, why does it still sound? And again, this was at the beginning of digital recording. You know, the one thing the guy that I worked for at DJ said, you know what? Because I had the option to buy tape stuff back in the early '90s because I was working there. And he just said, you know what, I think you should go to digital, and I think you should do the ADAT. And so that's what I did. So I used the ADAT, you know, recording, and then there was the company Digidesign, which is the company that developed Pro Tools. They had made and again, I was in the PC world because that's where my helpers, friends were, you know, so I could have them as consultants. And so I got this thing called Session 8. And it was like the baby brother of Pro Tools, and so, but it could interface with my ADAT system, you know, so then I could have 8 tracks internally in Session 8 in a computer like 95, you're going, whoa, amazing, and then you got the ADAT that's talking to it, and they're both in sync, and then you could actually store the sessions on an ADAT, you know, so I was like the big fish in, you know, in this little pond of Joliet, you know, because nobody else had anything digital like that. You know, so we were doing lots of recordings, and and then once I got into the computer, I could do more cleaning up and editing. But the real thing was, we really kind of thought about, you know, first of all, we maybe need some better guitars, you know. So then Joe knew a guy that lived out in Philadelphia, who knew a guy who built, you know, pristine guitars, John Zeidler. And so we did a road trip, you know, we went out to.
So you're talking about custom built acoustic?
Built guitars, acoustics, yeah. And so we went out there and we hung out with Wade, but then he introduced us to John. And John, you know, was a sensei of builder. You know, I mean, he was amazing. You know, he was articulate in that trade. Like, it was unbelievable. When I first went, this is a funny story. I even, in my album, on the album, when you go to jaskomusic.com, you know, I have about the songs, and I have this little story in there too. But there was when we first got to play the guitar, you know, I first felt a Zeidler guitar, and it was a cutaway. That's what I wanted. I wanted a kind of a cutaway, and I was playing. I was going, oh man, every note rings. Every note is even. Every note is, you know, like true in a sense. And he was like setting up this guitar for one of his other clients, and just doing some tweaking. And I just said, "Is this available, you know, for buying?" And he goes, "Don't you think I can make another one like that?" And I said, "Okay, fine, make another one like this." You know, so he made it. You know, it was a really beautiful guitar. It was, mine was made out of, it had a koa sides and back, and then he used always Adirondack spruce and ebony neck. You know, and it was just, you know, that's and it was smaller. And the thing about the way he built his guitars, you know, in terms of music-wise, the fundamentals of the notes really ring. You know, so the really.
So is it like a 3/4 scale?
No, it's
or-
regular auditorium size,
Okay.
you know, acoustic. You know, but all the notes, you know, they didn't have like extra overtones or you know, the bass wasn't. Every note was very clear. And so then when Joe, you know, was out, he says, "Well, I would like one too." And so Joe's was made out of Hurley maple, but he did it. And then he always used Adirondack spruce tops, you know, and so but he made his a little bit bigger. It was almost like a baritone guitar, a little, you know. And so those were the two guitars we used for the album, you know. So the source material is as good as you can get, you know. I mean, John Zeidler, who was a master builder, I don't even think he made more than 200 guitars before he passed away.
So that's interesting, because listening to the tracks, I was thinking, I remember you having this Guild acoustic. I was trying to think, was that the Guild, or did he maybe buy, you know, like a Gibson Hummingbird? You know, what was giving this really clear, almost bell-like tone? So that's very
It's
interesting.
mostly the Zeidler guitar. Like, for example, like the song for the Princess, the one that's just me and Larry, for example. That guitar was Joe's guitar. You know,
Okay.
because that
The
was
almost baritone.
the bigger sound. And the thing is, it didn't even need a bass. It had so much low end to it. You know, that guitar was, you know, I mean, I used it in a number of, you know, the tracks, you know, and so, yeah, that was the thing that we were lacking too. The Guild I used on some of the solos. There's some like double tracks where I used the Guild. The one song that I used the Guild just because I liked. It's called Even in Their Sleep. That was track 6. You know, Joe did the super low harmonicas on it, and then I had the Guild guitar that I used for playing that. But see, as time went on, I became way more adept at using Pro Tools. You know, and so even the tracks that we originally made, you know, like with the Guild and the things, I was able to understand why they didn't sound so good. You know, and I was able to learn the you know, the things to breathe more life into those tracks. You know, with the different EQs, there's a lot of new plugins one's called Gulfus, you know, which is almost like an AI EQ. You know, it really, that's how I use that on the Guild, and so I was able to kind of revivify some of those tracks, you know, and so I used the Guild on some, you know, and so that was the main thing, is getting good source material, but simultaneously, Joe, we were investing in really good microphones, you know, so one of the ones that we found that were really, really good for recording acoustic guitars were the Neumann tube mics, the Neumann KM54s, and so they just had a really nice sheen to them, you know. And even with, see, in the older days when you were recording digital, a lot of times it was 4416 or, you know, 4824, something.
So you're
lower
talking about
level.
the sample
sample
rates?
rate bit depths things. You know, it just wasn't as clear and as forgiving as it is now, you know, with some of the things you can do with having higher sample rates and higher bit depths, you know.
So just for the audience perspective, I think what you're talking about there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, is some of those early sample rates in effect did compression because they couldn't capture the full spectrum of a sound wave. So in effect, they wound up compressing the sound in different ways.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. The higher end wasn't as clear. And again, that was, I think, some contributing to the veil a little bit. You know, but the other thing is too, was the good mics. We got kind of baptized in fire with, you know, these are really the mics people are using in the studio, you know. And we made connections. One of the guys I worked with a lot in the days was Tracy Corby from, you know, he's in the Nashville area. And he was a builder. He was in Pittsburgh at the time when we first met him. And again, we met him and gone, you know, through his place when we were going to Philadelphia, and to, you know, and I would drop off stuff and he would fix it. You know, he was really good with vintage mics. That's what his thing was. And he was the one that kind of showed us these are the mics that people really are using to do pro level recording. So we kind of learned about that, you know, and so Joe co-invested with me into getting better microphones, you know, for the things. But the one thing we found too for recording harmonica was ribbon mics are really great mics. And so we started kind of collecting, you know, some really great ribbon mics. And so why don't you speak to why you think harmonica really resounds with ribbons? And, you know, the idea.
And how about first, what is a ribbon mic?
Okay, first of all, okay, there's basically three types of microphones that you have. You have a dynamic mic, which is like the Shure 58, you know, that basically it's a moving coil, it moves, and it creates like a small electrical current, which is then transformed into, you know, audio. Those are the more durable type mics, and they're usually less expensive, you know, but they also have a kind of a roll-off in the, like, higher frequencies, but they're great for doing, you know, performances. A ribbon mic is an interesting, it has just a thin ribbon there's two magnets that are on the sides, and so it is actually the thing that receives the sound, but it's also the thing that converts the sound into like a signal. So it's called the transducer. Both dynamic mics and ribbon mics have these things that have transducers that change the analog sound into electrical sound. And so, but because it's a little bitty ribbon moving really slowly, it needs a lot of gain. You have to really crank up the gain for it to really, you know, get the signal level. There's plus and minus to that. When you crank up the gain, you can introduce, you know, noise into it more. And so, but there's been a lot of companies. The company AEA has, and then also Cascade. Those two companies, and both American companies that make ribbon mics, kind of revivified the ribbon mic world, you know, and they came out with some really great, you know, newer versions of ribbon mics that are more durable and, you know, less noisy, and some of them actually can use phantom power, you know. Mostly when you use ribbon mics, the thou shalt not press the phantom power, because you can blow out the ribbon, and you can do that with super fast air, you know, transients too. And so, but the ribbon mic has an inherent, like, resonant frequency in the lower register, you know, more so like some mics have like a boost in the highs. Well, like if you look at, like, if here's 20 to 20K hertz, you know, they have a little bit bigger sound in the low end, and they're kind of even in the high end, you know, but that's what they give them, that really, you know, full warmth kind of sound.
Okay.
That's the thing we, you know, that we realized. And so when we started doing, you know, more harmonica recording, we had the different ribbon mics that we'd use for that sort of thing.
So then throwing that back over to Joe, knowing that those microphones can literally be blown out, did that affect your playing or your placement of the harmonica versus the mic?
No, not really. But I do think it's important to mention that we first started off recording the harmonica with a condenser mic, which the end result was that there was something that was, I think a good word would be harsh or abrasive about the sound. It was just like,
It was edgy.
yeah, in an unpleasant way. So doing a little bit of research, we concluded it on our own and by checking with others that most people agreed that the condenser mics were the worst white microphones to use to record harmonica. The tube mics were moderately good, they could be good, and that ribbon mics just had a way of squashing the natural harshness of the harmonica and enhancing the fundamental and the richness. And why it does it, I don't know.
Well, because partly it doesn't have that. See, condenser mics have a little bit of a boost in the high end. You know, they kind of like are hyped in some ways. And it's funny too, there are some of the songs on the album that we actually used. I used the takes, the low ones when you did the thing for, even in their sleep, the low section of that was done with a condenser mic. But he did such a killer job on it, I had to use it, and so, but what I see, this is the new world. The new world, you can do mic modeling. So basically what I did is I took that microphone and then I mated it with a plug-in by Stephen Slate that had, a much warmer sound. So I took that old signal and I ran it through this modeling thing to make it warmer, but that wasn't available in the past. That's only been available in the last 5 or 6 years, that kind of modeling technology. And so that's how I kind of warmed up some of those old tracks. We had a couple of them that we used, where they were originally recorded in the mid-90s. And some of those harmonica parts were recorded in the mid-90s, and I migrated them up, into Session 8, then into Pro Tools, and then but I was able to use some of the newer modeling technologies to enhance the quality of the sound.
So for someone like myself, that's very encouraging to hear, because you used to teach, one of the things was the 5 levels of improv, and when you get to that 5th level, not only is everything in the pocket, but just the experience, it's almost like a natural high. So when I had cobbled my little studio together in like the early 2000s to get away from the family and hide in the basement, and I have a couple of tracks where, I will never be able to reproduce just how good they were. One I sent you the link to called No Sin, but the recording quality, 10K hard drives using ACID 4, which ran on a computer with 64 meg. I've made several attempts to try and go back and remaster or remix those, or even add additional instruments on top, and it's never worked out. But it sounds like
no, you can fix that. You can fix that stuff now. Yeah, there's amazing ways to fix audio, with the newer plugins, and like I was saying, that when there's two of them. My son Gabe is Chance the Rapper's first engineer, and he turned me on to a couple of these like plugins. One's called Soothe that I used quite a bit. It does exactly what it does. It soothes the take, takes out some of that harshness, especially like higher register stuff. And then the other one is called Golfus, which is one of those more interactive kind of EQs. So we were talking about ribbon mics, right? I think that's what we were
we were talking a little bit about kind of how the album came together, and you went into detail on some of the gear that you used.
Yeah, so that was, are we running again?
Everything's running.
Okay. Well, then basically, so we were recording on a regular basis, once like 2000 kicked in, and I migrated up to the real Pro Tools. I got a system with the HDX system, and then that's when I went really, once we had the mics and we had the guitars, that's when, and then we had the ribbon mics. That's when we started recording. I focused on my old place. I recorded a lot of the guitar parts. In fact, all the main guitar parts were recorded then, and some of the harps stuff we did, you know, with the ribbon mics. But then in 2007, you know, I moved from my old place and we moved to a new place, which is much bigger, but we had to rebuild the studio. And then you know, Joe and I are making a new studio again, you know, so that was 2009, like it was finally finished. But then that's when the whole DARA program started. And so 2009 to 2016, I was completely involved with building that studio upstairs, you know, and designing more courses. But then they made me get my master's too, you know, and so I had to go back to get my master's. And so did Albie, and we were both doing that simultaneously. We were developing coursework, building the studio, marketing the program, getting, you know, doing all this at the
That's
same
a
time.
lot.
Yeah, and so I didn't have the wherewithal. And Joe was super patient because we had all this stuff in the can, you know, and it's like, okay, could get going on this again, but he was beautiful about it, you know, and never really pressured me, just was urging me, you know, which was a beautiful thing. And so, but then I did what Joe did, is back in 2016, once I got my you know, my master's done, the program was in place, you know, I shaved my head. And I said, I'm gonna start again, you know, so I shaved, and I started working on the bass parts, you know, just really, that's when I really dug into it.
That was gonna be one of my questions.
Yeah,
was who did the bass work.
I learned, you know, I just dedicated myself to bass, you know, and I had two really, really great, you know, basses. I had a fretless bass, the Status fretless bass. I actually, for a time, when I was working after DJs, that the guy that owned DJs was the Trace Elliott distributor in the U.S. And then I got stuff really great cost, you know, some beautiful, you know, like amps and basses and stuff. And so then I got a Jaguar, one of the Japanese Jaguar basses, which was I wanted to use for more of the straight stuff and slap stuff. And so that was the, you know, the procedure. I was doing those, and then Joe, you know, would be going, okay, you want me to do this? And so I would give him this song, and I'd have it either written out or I'd have it, you know, recorded in MIDI and say, okay, here's the melody. And so maybe you could tell him a little bit about your process of learning the melodies.
One of my highly refined skills is that I'm actually really good at doing what I'm told.
You can follow instructions.
I can follow instructions very, very well
And
if I want
totally affirm that. That was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. If I want to, I can do that. And I think it was the love and admiration and respect that I have that I was just like willing to throw myself there and just do whatever he wanted to have done. I think initially I was, I could be a little more resistant, that I wanted to do things in a certain way, and ultimately with the last number of songs it was really all about what is the best possible way to capture the harmonica on this, what's the best possible way. And yeah, I'm very happy with the way that ended up. It was a good move, but you have to keep in mind that it's an extreme part of my personality and my interest of making music on the harmonica. Another part of my interest is playing as one half of a duo in doing American roots music and blues, and another facet is doing solo unaccompanied harmonica. So it's like these are, to me, three different things, three different flavors, and I didn't need to be mixing those flavors from one project into another. So
It was interesting too. Did you remember Nanette Mahler? She was in Wolfpack too. She played keyboards, I think the first year.
Yes.
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 Well, I just got a hold of her this last week and told her about the CD, and she just purchased it, you know. And she was going, yeah, flawless. She goes, it is amazing what you guys did with this. And she said, and Joe made the harp sound like 60 different instruments. And I was just like, that's wild, you know, and kind of what I wanted to do, you know, in some ways. So like those years from 2016 to 2020 was a focus on creating bass parts and capturing these songs, which took a lot of work to learn because it was almost like I was doing the Winston Churchill thing on him, saying, you know, just sink to Bismarck, will you, man, just get it, you know, and these were tough songs for harmonica, really hard songs, you know, and so it took sometimes months to get them into your system. They even felt that they were, you know, musical, I guess, and so, you know, there was a lot of practicing. He would, you know, show me what he has, and I'd say, okay, that's good, we'll do this there, and, you know, and so because of his friendship, he was able to, you know, to go there with me. And so, but then what happened on the drums was, you know, COVID kicked in. Because I had booked Larry in 2019 in December to say, can you set aside 3 days in my spring break so I can record all this stuff, you know? And so he said, yeah, sure, you know, and it was trying to make it super beneficial for him. But then, you know, we were working on pre-production stuff before that. And then what happened was, you know, when I actually kicked in, it was like the second week of March in 2020. Well, everybody knows that New York started to get shut down, you know, so he's there, we're getting all the sounds and doing stuff, and he goes, huh, all my gigs from March and April are done. Next day, May, June, and July are done. August, next day, August, all these gigs that he was losing. And I went, he goes, I have plenty of time to record, you know. So we tried, again, making lemonade out of lemons. You know, we
Works for
utilized,
him, works for you.
yeah, and, you know, we spent more time, you know, working on the drums and percussion, you know, which I think really paid off, because you remember how masterful Larry was as, you know, as a player and things that he did.
Absolutely. I don't know if you guys remember a friend of mine that you accepted into the guitar ensemble, Jim Pickett.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first day I brought Jim, and he listened to Larry, he just, you know, pardon my language, he just looked over and he's like, can you believe this fucking drummer?
Yeah.
You know, that was his quote.
Yeah, I know. Larry was, I mean, that's why we had fundraisers for him, you know, just so we could, you know, he could be, you know, part of this, you know, project. But that, you know, but our friendship has gone on since, you know, those days and more. See you later, bud. And it was really fun working with him too, because, you know, I would bounce off my edits and say, what do you think? You
Yeah,
know,
he's got
and
enough experience and depth of knowledge.
And
Yeah.
he is a great composer. And he is, I mean, he is an amazing MIDI composer. You know, he would do things like this in the last 20 years. He's been doing this regularly. A company will come out with a sound library. He'd download it, make something with it, send it off to the company. The company go, you can have our stuff, make demos for us. You know, and so he had like probably $50,000 worth of you know, software libraries just because companies loved his writing. So he's very finicky, you know, about what he wanted, and he was thrilled the way I recorded the drums and, you know, the percussion, and so to please him is no mere thing, you know. But he did just outstanding performances, you know, on the album. I think some of them are just classic.